Hey everyone, good morning. And guess what? It's Thursday morning. That means we have gotten through this first full week of the online experience. Now, some of you, of course, oh, Eccles, I've taken online classes before, but for many of us, as we've mentioned, a lot of you have said to me, never taken an online class before, never thought they would ever take an online course. And as I've mentioned to you all, I've never taught an online course. I've been at Bergen for now 21 years. Taught for several years before that when I was out in the Midwest for my brief little venture out there. Um, this has been quite interesting. But I have to tell you, and I don't know if some of you are seeing this, but there's something that I'm actually liking about this online experience, and I'll tell you what it is. Now, I am someone who loves to just get up in front of the class. I'm moving around, I'm joking around, I'm doing all kinds of things all the time. That's just who I am. It's my nature. And that's why I love to be in front of the students, face to face classes. But, like, for example, if I'm asking you about anybody got an example of someone maybe who stereotyped you, and I might get out of 22 students, two or three hands up. Or if I say, hey, would you ever like take notes if you're talking with a best friend and they have like a big problem that they're dealing with, and as they're going on for a while, would you go ahead and take notes? Yeah, I might get two, three people raise their hand out of 22. Yet here, one of the things that I loved about this assignment is so many of you gave me such really good, detailed answers, and I'm not like in the classroom saying anybody else, anybody else, anybody else, and no hands going up. So I have to tell you, although I just do prefer face-to-face classes and the lecturing and the discussion, one of the things I really did like about this past assignment on Chapter 2 and Chapter 5 was the detailed answers that you guys gave. Because they were really interesting, and you realize, after we talk about it, that when it comes to communication, yeah, I mean, it happens. Whether those perceptual errors occur when somebody talks to you or you've done it yourself. And also when it comes to now, this is something interesting because we've had this discussion, like we've had really good discussions in class about the whole taking of the notes. Um, and of course, I don't blame anybody if they disagree with me on this one because it's a new concept. It's not something you would even consider in most cases. It's something you wouldn't even think about. So to me, if you're not agreeing with me, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. But one of the things I'll do with students, and a student will raise their hand in class and they'll say, no, I could never do that. I can't take notes in front of my friend. They'll think I'm not paying attention. And then I go over to them, I hold up their notebook, and I says, what is all this crap you've been writing? Look at this about listening, the listening stage. Why are you writing all this stuff? Didn't I just say this already? Why are you writing it? And of course, what's the one thing they say? So I'll remember. And I'll say, now what's the difference between what you're doing in a classroom with me lecturing and what you're doing with your friend in your mother's kitchen as they've just had this bad traumatic experience and they're going to go on for a while? What's the difference? There is no difference. It's still listening. Okay? You may not have the distractions that you might have in a classroom. Okay? There might be somebody who's falling asleep in class and that distracts you. There might be something at the window that distracts you. There might be someone who you're attracted to and you're always looking at them, whatever it is. Okay? But still, whether it's in that kitchen along with your best friend or you're in the classroom listening to a professor, you're still actively listening. Let me give you the best example. And again, if it's something you'll never do and you think, I can understand my friend being offended, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. But let me give you an example. What was it about? 2006. I think it was 2006 or 2007. We hired a brand new president at Bergen Community College, Dr. Jerry Ryan. So what Dr. Ryan decided to do as that first fall semester was coming along, he decided to invite a few faculty up to his office just to talk about where they saw the college going. And he invited some older people and actually some of the newer people. And at the time, I was only in my fourth or fifth year, so I qualified as a newer person. So he invites me up to his office. Now, I was only there for like 10 or 15 minutes tops. And the first question he asked me was, what excites you most about the college going into the future? Well, for me at the time, being from Lyndhurst, it was the Meadowlands campus. I mean, the idea that we were actually going to put a full-fledged satellite campus in Lyndhurst. I mean, of course, on a school note, and a Bergen County note, I thought it was great because so many students come from southern Bergen County. Now they don't have to trek up Route 17 or go up the Parkway to Paramus. They can just go, if you're from North Arlington, Lyndhurst, Rutherford, East Rutherford, Carlstadt, if you're from Bloomfield, Belleville, Nutley, where we get a lot of students, Secaucus, Harrison, Kearney, boom, you can just go right there in Lyndhurst. And on a private note, of course, I was very excited that that would happen because I always had the prospect of me going to stop at my parents' house, having lunch with my dad, and then going to teach a class a mile away. So, and of course, as I was talking to him and giving him this answer, he was writing it down. Well, I didn't see the president for like a month and a half. And it was a weekend getaway with the Student Life Office, leadership weekend. And I happened to see the president. And of course, the faculty were all sitting at one particular table for breakfast. And as soon as I sat down, the president said hello to me. And the first thing he says is, "So, Mike, let me tell you what's going on with the Meadowlands campus." Now, that's the first thing he said. How did he know to say that? It's because he remembered, because he wrote down what I said in that interview we had in his office a month and a half before. And I only saw him 2 other times the entire school year. And yet those other 2, once on an elevator and once in the hallway, both times he brought up the Meadowlands campus. So, again, I can understand if, no, I could never take notes, because, of course, people always think that when I say take notes, when talking to a friend, that you pull out, a legal pad. No. Remember what I said. I'm talking about the sales circular for ShopRite that comes out every week, and in the blank margin, just writing 3 or 4 words. Now, myself, I've only done that twice in my entire life. Once is one of my very best friends since high school. At a very young age, I think she was only in her late 30s, his wife was going through some cancer. And it was really, really coming down on him because a lot of things just seemed to be getting on his shoulders. And it was the only time, and thankfully we were over the phone, it was the only time my best friend, I heard him cry. And as he was going through all of this stuff, I was just writing down. So when he finally stopped talking about everything that was going on with him, I could respond to him in a way that did demonstrate that I was listening to everything that he was saying. And then the other time was in a restaurant where somebody was upset about something and they had a little to drink, so they were going to ramble for a while. And I just grabbed one of those napkins out of the little metal container that they have at the diners, and I took the white napkin and I started writing down 3 or 4 words. So, no, it's not something that you would normally think about doing, but hey, if it helps, it helps, especially to help to give the most effective response. Well, now a little bit about Chapter 6, Nonverbal Communication. Now, this is one I can go on with forever, and I'm not going to do that to you, especially as we're heading into the holiday weekend. But some of my favorite different terms that come out of nonverbal communication. Remember, any communication without the verbal language is nonverbal communication. For example, one of the things they talk about are what we call emblems. Now, emblems are anything where a word doesn't have to be said, and yet it has a direct verbal translation. All right? For example, if I just suddenly tripped and fall, okay? Now, all of you are wondering, hey, Eccles, are you okay? You okay? And if I go ahead and give you this, all right? Now, I just fell. And if you asked me if I was okay, I gave you a thumbs up, right? So what did the thumbs up mean to you? That meant okay. What you didn't say to me is, okay, Eccles, you've got a spasm in your thumb, but you haven't answered my question. Are you okay? All right? That's what an emblem is, okay? Maybe if you can't really hear what somebody's saying, you might go, well, what? These are just things that we call emblems, where there's a direct verbal translation. No verbal is necessary, and you understand exactly. Well, I'll give you an example. Happens at the college all the time, especially at the college. When, let's say, you're driving on Paramus Road North, and you're heading to the campus, and you're in the right lane, driving alongside where the cemetery and the golf course is, and as you're about to pull into the campus, somebody in the left lane cuts you off. So, of course, now you're upset you got cut off, so you follow them to where they're parking over in the B lot. And as they're about to park their car, you pull up right next to them, and you go ahead and you give them the peace sign. But of course, you leave this finger down. Now, does that person need to hear the words that you're saying? No, there is no words you need to say. I think the symbol of that, yeah, that one middle finger being, yeah, I don't think any words need to be used to transmit and the message, and I'm sure they understand the meaning of your message without any words. But one of my other favorite terms in nonverbal communication is when we use nonverbal body movements to help paint a picture of a verbal message. Now, there's a verbal message, but we use these nonverbal body movements to paint a picture of a verbal message. And what these nonverbal body movements are called, and they're used quite often, are called illustrators. Again, they help to paint a picture of the verbal message. Now, it's early morning for some of you, maybe mid-morning for some of you. Some of you might not be watching this to the afternoon. And if it happens to be in the morning, you could probably turn on any of our local TV channels. And you'll probably see quite a few people using illustrators this morning. Who am I talking about? So what's going to happen is this cold front is going to come down from Canada. It's going to sweep into our area. It's going to drive out that sun and then bring these sprinkles down. But then later on in the day, this warm front is going to slowly move up from the Gulf of Mexico, push out that cold front, and we'll have bright sunshine. I love watching TV meteorologists, okay? Most of them, whether they're male or female, always look like they're getting up there and doing the Macarena. They're doing all kinds of different things. And it's the reason why is they just can't tell you the weather. They have to illustrate it using those nonverbal body movements. I'll give you another example as we're now into the spring, going into the summer, and hopefully as we open up more things here in New Jersey, some of you may know someone, or maybe you are. I'm trying to hide these. Jeez. My hair is so long right now, I can't wait to get a haircut. And I haven't gone to any underground place yet, like my wife did yesterday. She went to an underground place and got her haircut. Anyway, shh, I shouldn't have said that. Anyway, we all know somebody, maybe one of you is like, you love to go fishing. Well, have you ever asked somebody who had a really good day of fishing, hey, how'd the fishing go today? What kind of answer do they give you? Oh, man, it was great. I mean, I had this, I was like 6 miles off of Belmar, and there was this 85-pound bluefish, like this big. And I mean, I fought this thing like all day. And of course, they just can't tell you a fishing story. They must illustrate the fishing story. Another one of my favorites that are in your textbook has to deal with paralanguage. And that's when you actually send a nonverbal message inside of a verbal message. Let's say, for example, I'll pick on one of our guys here. Who is it I wanted to pick on? Oh, Bradley Mika. All right. Bradley, pretty big kid. Let's say Bradley tells me this Saturday he's going hiking up to Bear Mountain. Now, let's say I know that, it's going to be wintry, it's going to be cold, it's going to be rainy and windy. There's even a possibility of them closing down Bear Mountain because of the weather. So I say to Bradley, Bradley, I don't think you're going to make it. Now, of course, what did I mean? Well, I meant because of the weather, he might not be able to go. Well, now Bradley Mika tells me, yeah, I'm going hiking up to Bear Mountain this weekend. And I say, Bradley, I don't think you're going to make it. Don't get all upset, Brad. All right. Now, what's the difference? If you wrote each sentence out, each word in both sentences would be exactly the same. But because I put an accent on one particular word the second time I said it, I changed the entire meaning of the message. Instead of Bradley not being able to go hiking because of the weather, I now did an assassination on his character. All right. So that's where, and of course, you could do that with a lot of different words in the same sentence and give it just several different meanings. And that's paralanguage. Because did I go ahead and say, Brad, you're a slob, you're a slug, you have trouble getting up the stairs to the second floor, never mind Bear Mountain? I didn't say all that, but I did, didn't I? And that's what paralanguage is all about. But another one of my favorite terms, because I used to do experiments with this when I was a much younger person, and that's proxemics. See, proxemics is the way we communicate based on our use of space. All right. Now, for some of you, if you've ever, one time been in a laundromat, you know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to proxemics. All right? But I'll give you another example. See, we like to communicate non-verbally based on our use of space, and we hope that everyone receives and understands those messages, even though we're not saying them verbally. All right? I'll give you a great example. I'm going to use some props here. All right. So let's say you're getting on the bus. And you get on the bus right at our bus stop. And what's the first thing you do with your bag? You got your bag, okay? First thing you do, you put it on the seat next to you. And now you're sitting and you're trying not to pay attention to all the people coming in. But you put that bag right next to you. Now, if you could verbally say the message that you're sending out, you would go ahead and you'd stand up and say, for everyone who's getting on this New Jersey Transit bus, I don't want any of you smelly people sitting next to me. That's why that's there. No, keep going. Keep going. Don't even think of sitting next to me. Well, we don't say that verbally, but I think the message is quite clear non-verbally based on our non-communicative way we use space. And then, of course, finally, when every other seat on the bus is taken, and that person has to finally, and they'll go back and forth, finally realize you've got the only seat left, they'll go ahead and say to you, they'll say, excuse me, can you move your bag, please? And of course, what do? And you have that scowl on your face, like, how dare you? Even though you might never even say a word during that entire situation. So that's proxemics. All right. That's the first half. I got one other half, a much shorter half, that's coming up right now.